just to do that. There we go.
Hey, good afternoon. My name is Francis Micah, and I'm the Information Officer for the Regional District of Kootenay Boundary Emergency Operations Center. And we've got a 2020 Freshet Advanced Planning team on this video. This is the second installment, and it's basically an outlook for the next number of days of what we expect to see in river levels, in weather, and in general outlook for the Freshet. This is ever changing, and we will provide more updates later in the week. So I'll turn it over to Graham Watt.
All right. Hello, everybody. Hold on, I got to share the right Zoom window here. There we go. Okay. So today we're going to talk a little bit once again about snow, the weather forecast, and then river conditions overall in the watershed. Just want to draw your attention to this Google Earth tool. This is or will be posted soon on the emergency.rdkb.com website. This is a live data link from Google Earth where you can actually go into one of the monitoring stations that we're watching, click on it, and go right to the link. So an example that'll show off today, zoom in here, you'll see Grano Creek. We always talk about the Grano Creek snow pillow, so you can see how it's sitting up in the upper Christian Valley watershed right near Mount Morin. You click on that link, click on that graph, and you'll see a link show up, and it'll open up a page where you'll actually get a pop-up of something like I'm going to show you today, which is a snow graph. So I'll show you where you can get that. Data is all posted under emergency.rdkb.com. And if you go to latest updates, freshet conditions, you'll see this page, and all that information, including the maps that you download to Google Earth, will be available on that page, as well as other information that we use for looking at our forecasts regularly. So in terms of weather, we pay attention to a whole bunch of different weather data, and we talk to real meteorologists every week. We are not real meteorologists ourselves, but we're trying to pay attention to what they're telling us to pay attention to. So for instance, we'll look at precipitation showing up in weather models. This is an Environment Canada weather model that is broadcast at Avalanche Canada, and you can see some broad bands of precipitation in this model Wednesday evening, and in this case they're kind of showing up in that 5 to 15 5 to 15 millimeters over a 12-hour period of water, 12-hour precipitation. So that's an example of what we might look for. You can go through a model and see how the system moves, how the system changes. And then the thing I really like to look at here, you'll see elsewhere in the forecast, a whole bunch of sunshine coming for this weekend. So that sunshine also means warm weather and more melting up high. Another tool that we use, we don't have it linked on the site, but it's called Spot WX. So this page has a graph output of everything you'll see coming out of this exact same weather model, but for one point in the middle of the watershed, one spot in the middle of the watershed. So this spot that we're looking at is actually at near Grano Creek, where that one snow pillow is. And as we go over the week and see that is live data, they refresh this a couple times a day. Here on the weekend, starting to get to 14, 15, 16 degrees, 17 degrees, up at that upper elevation areas over the weekend. And so that's where we're expecting to see the most melting happening. And during the middle of the week, it's actually a little bit cooler, not getting that much above zero overnight, or it's freezing overnight, getting a few degrees above zero during the day. And you can see there's a mixture of rain and snow on Wednesday and Thursday, coming up to about 7.5 mil of rain and 2.5 centimeters of snow. So remember, that's a forecast based on a model. These forecasts change every single day that we look at them. And sometimes you'll see a forecast for a big rise in rain and it turns out to be a little dribble, and sometimes the vice versa. But we're watching every day and looking for information where the different models start to come together and say, here's what you should expect. Looking further out, so towards the end of the week, we'll see after it warms up, then we're seeing where it cools down again. And there appears to be more precipitation coming in, and it's coming first as snow, than as rain. So we're watching that closely, because if it ends up being warmer than this forecast says, then that's going to be more of a cause for concern in terms of potential flooding. But we're getting information now that's almost 10 days away and highly unlikely to actually show up like this. What really matters is current data. We like to look at what the snow stations are doing. So in particular, the automated snow weather station graphs, they're updating data all the time on these. And the Grano Creek snow pillow, right in the middle of the watershed, it's dropping a little bit now. So it had been sort of right at the higher end of normal range, and it's now dropping a little bit. We've also got, I just showed you that one. We've also got Mission Creek, which is sort of as you head out towards Kelowna from the Big White area. It's off to the north up in the mountains in that ridge. And it's actually starting to drop a little bit as well, but well above normal, but not as extreme as 2018. So there's still a lot of snow up on that part of the watershed. And one more that we look at, it's a little bit lower elevation. It's at about 1,500 meters. It's kind of between Penticton and McCulloch Pass, called the Grayback Reservoir. And it's all way down to kind of the lower range of normal. It's melting really quickly. And so this is kind of what we're seeing from a lot of our streams and rivers lower down. They've really been kind of rising in response to the rapid melt of the lower elevation snowpack. And overall, this is kind of painting the picture. And I'm going to show off an interesting graph that I just found here, an interesting map. I was finding new data. There's a map on an American site where they've got an estimate of snow depth or snow coverage across all over the place. And you can kind of see, yeah, here we go. In the valley bottoms, there's no snow, a little bit of snow up on Phoenix near Greenwood, between Greenwood and Grand Forks. And then up in the middle of the valley between Christian Valley and the Granby, lots of snow up in those areas. So it's those areas where you've got high mountains, lots of big snow up top. The plateau country between Beaver Dell and the Okanagan has lots of snow there. Those are the areas that we're looking at would be impacted the most if we get a whole bunch more rain, whereas the areas that have dried out, it might not have as much of a response for runoff. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Christina to talk about the rivers.
Thanks, Graham.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll see if I can share the screen here. So I'll actually just start. See if we can, there we go. I'll actually just start with speaking. So one of the first things that we look at is what's actually happening right now. So the real time, this is a Water Survey of Canada station. So Graham mentioned to you where all the different links were in how to find some of this data. This is one of those links, and same that's been hyperlinked within that Google Earth map. So I'm focusing a little bit on the west boundary because they were seeing a little bit more of a higher rise in river levels over this weekend, percentage-wise of normal. So this is the West Kettle River. So if any of you have been out in the west boundary, you may have seen that rise coming in on Saturday or Sunday from that same precipitation that Graham was mentioning. And it sort of really shows how sensitive it is to that precipitation. He also mentioned about the amount of snow that's out there. So that's one of the big things we're watching for, that temperature and the snow. So that rain that we hit on the weekend peaked and it's come back down again. So what our lines above here is our max, and that's our normal range. So if we bring it down for people that are used to seeing the hydrograph, this is a little bit more, shows the peak. So if we bring it out to just a normal hydrograph, and again, this is the same thing that you can get on the site or on the emergency management site. So it just shows there's your mean, average, normal, and this is the green line here is our current discharge. So that's just at Westbridge on the West Kettle. Trapping Creek, which we saw higher up in the watershed, it peaked, it went above maximum on the record. So that'll be interesting. We'll be able to see some changes as they redo the graph next year. So again, we're higher up and same thing, peaked, and then it's coming back down after that rain. So it's really responsive to the rain. For the folks in the Grand Forks area, this is your Granby River. So this is, I know a lot of people have been talking about, again, that peak. So again, there's that peak on the weekend from that rain that we had on the Saturday night. and then it shoots itself back down and starts working its way back down again. So if we look at a comparison, see if I can pull up a different chart here. So this is just looking at the comparison for what do we have at different years. So this is looking at the percentage of normal. So that's sort of that mean average that I was talking about. So you're looking at the West Kettle, that's just your current cubic meters per second that we saw was that green line on the graph. And that's 186% of normal. So that's sort of your standard. The normal is going to be based off how many years of data we have for that particular site. You see the Kettle River at Westbridge is 122% of normal. So you see that we're quite a bit above normal. Why is it really important for us to be very aware of that? Because any of that precipitation or that temperature changes that Graham was talking about can have that bit more of an effect on the rivers. Just doesn't have as much room, but we're also still looking at in the comparison to the 2018 and the 2017. So if we go back, now we want to start looking at what are we forecasting. So we've heard about the precipitation or temperature that might be coming. So let's see if we can just shoot this back over here to see about forecasting. So I've just picked two of the stations. These forecasts, again, on the links are all on the emergency management site for regional district. The forecasting is, this one is done by the River Forecast Center, looking at the precipitation and temperature, and also it's comparing and keeping in mind how much snow is up in the snowpacks. So here for the West Kettle at Westbridge, it's showing again that peak that we saw, dropping back down with the cooler temperatures and slowly starting to rise again. And it's showing a rise within that 1 to 2 year return period. So if we look over at the Granby, again, we're getting just over that 1 year return period. So again, it's showing that, you know, we had that bit of a peak, dropping with that cooler temperatures and then the rise. The biggest thing that we want to remember about these types of graphs is that you really want to look at that high confidence, low confidence component there. So within the first couple of days is got a lot more confidence that this might be what we're seeing because you've got that precipitation and the temperature confidence. And as we get out, it's nice to know, but keeping in mind that they're low confidence. It's not as reliable. Yeah.
Thanks, Christina. And we'll turn it over to Chris Marsh.
Hi, everyone. Chris Marsh. I'm the Emergency Operations Center Deputy Director for 2020 Freshet Response. Late last week, we did see some temporary flood protective works arrive in the city of Grand Forks. 2 tractor trailer loads of things like tiger dams that we saw back in 2018. We're maintaining those at a staging location at this point. In cooperation with our partners at Emergency Management BC, we need to essentially keep them in a state of readiness so they can be moved anywhere in the southern part of the province if they're needed more than they might be needed locally. So we're evaluating the need for those every single day, and we'll deploy them as necessary. There have been several meetings and more meetings to come and discussions and some field work around how we'll roll those out. The intention is to provide significant protection for the downtown core and north and south Ruckle if the need arises, but at this time we're not expecting that to happen. We are constantly evaluating our need for sand and sandbags. Sandbags are currently available in an unfilled state from the village of Midway and the city of Grand Forks, but sand hasn't been staged yet, but we're ready to move on that anytime as necessary. We continue to evaluate all this information several times a day. We have many meetings with folks from across the province, the River Forecast Center, Emergency Management BC, and amongst ourselves to make sure that we're using the most current and the best information we possibly can. We'll have further updates as we go through the week here. We have another significant briefing about current conditions on Wednesday, and that'll be followed by an update on Thursday. So thanks everyone for your contributions and have a great day.
Thanks everybody.